Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. I'm Stephanie Fisher. I'm a licensed counselor here in the state of Michigan, and I am owner and operator of In Progress Counseling. You'll see me moving around a little bit. I'm trying to get the reflection off my glasses and it's not working real well. But we are doing a series on using kind of the metaphor of nutrition and looking at how things process, and we're using that as an analogy in our own stories, how things might process, because it does take a while sometimes to move from the point of impact of something coming to our awareness until it's just a part of the story and it's not, running the show, calling the shots, feeling incredibly overwhelming. There's a process there. And so one of the things about something new coming to my level of awareness is point of impact doesn't even mean that I'm opening my mouth and I'm chewing on something yet. As something new is brought to my level of awareness, I might actually not be ready for it. I might decide initially to reject it. I mentioned in my last video where, the first time that a piece of that trauma timeline is put together, I turn my back to it and I'm like, nope, I don't see my story that way. That's too bad. And what's so interesting is sometimes our brains actually, we don't even have to use a defensive mechanism. Our brains just don't absorb something. I had this 4 or 5 years ago where I had a really profoundly upsetting and I would say unkind conversation on a Friday. And I just kind of went on with my weekend. And on Monday, when I was talking to a trusted friend, out of the blue, I said, "Do you know what they said to me?" And it came like rapidly to my level of awareness. And I said this really unkind, cutting thing. I repeated it. It's like my brain was finally willing to deal with it. And it just hit me. And I just started sobbing. So for 3 days, my brain didn't even let me think about it. It didn't call it to my awareness because there were so many other things I was processing. I wasn't even ready to hear this really cutting remark that had been said that was just horrifically unkind. Our brains actually sometimes work with us to blunt the effect of what we are aware of or what we are hearing or what we are experiencing. And then sometimes we use our own strategies of rejecting information. Like I said, me turning my back to information. This is all before I even start to take something in and do something with it, try to work my way through it. And so point of impact is this place that can actually become incredibly disorienting. And like I mentioned, when I'm with students who are going through like the DSM manual for the first time and they're like, "I think this is my family. I think this is me. I think I have this." It's like this kind of blunt force impact that's happening. And the first place I'll start with them when a client or when a student is coming to me really just disoriented or overwhelmed or frustrated or angry or very, very vulnerable, the first question I'll ask for them is, "Hey, help me understand what your mind is saying changes now that you know this thing." Because it can feel so scary and so overwhelming. So a very common one is someone coming in and saying, "I think my mom had this diagnosis," or "I think this explains my dad really well." And I'll say to them, "Help me understand what your fear says. What does that change for you?" So now we're taking this fear sensation back here and we're bringing it up to think about it, because at that point, the client or the student has already lived through decades and decades of, this potential reality. They're just now becoming aware of it. And the fear says like, "Oh, this changes everything." And my question is very helpful in framing like, I wonder if this does change everything. Because remember, they might not even be willing to chew on it yet. They might not even be willing to deal with it yet. They're just coming in kind of frozen like, "Oh my word, I think this is a thing." Okay, if it were a thing, does that change something for you? What does that fear say? So what we're doing is we're preparing the stage for even putting something in and starting to chew on it. And that's okay if we're resisting that process. Now, what I will say is long term, we need to live in reality. We need to be mentally well. M. Scott Peck says, it's a commitment to reality at all costs. It's a commitment to that present. It's a commitment to what's true. So eventually we have to do something with it or decide what changes. What do we want to do with it? But I want to normalize that point of impact can be incredibly disorienting. And it makes sense that we resist it to a point. and having a helper in your story where someone says, hey, let me hold that with you. Let's go through that together. Let's co-regulate as you feel the big feelings around this. That is a-okay. That is an appropriate avenue of dealing with harsh realities, upsetting realities, overwhelming realities. But that point of impact is even before we start to digest quite often, because sometimes we're just like, wait, what does that even mean? And that's where having a guide in your story can be so useful.